clatter of dishes, the low hum of conversation, and the scent of strong coffee filled the late-night diner in Arlington, Virginia. It was the kind of place where stories lived in every cracked leather booth and every cup of black coffee poured by tired hands. But on one particular rainy night in November 1961, a story unfolded that would never make it into any history book. And yet, it changed a man and, maybe a nation forever. He entered quietly, wearing a low hat and an overcoat turned up against the cold drizzle. The bell above the door gave a reluctant chime, barely heard over the jukebox playing a lonely tune. Most patrons didn't glance up, but the waitress behind the counter did. Her name was Ellie Jameson, 25 years old, single mother, and someone who had learned long ago that people only see what they expect to see. She had a way of watching the world without it watching her back. And so when the tall man in the overcoat slid into a corner booth and kept his head down, Ellie noticed. She poured a fresh pot of coffee and made her way to him. As she approached, he lifted his head slightly, revealing a face she had seen 1,000 times on the television, in newspapers, on campaign buttons, still stuck to strangers' coats. President John F. Kennedy. Ellie didn't gasp or drop the pot. She simply met his eyes and said, "Late night for you too, huh?" He smiled tired, as if the weight of the world had made a home between his shoulders. "Could use some quiet," he said, "and a decent cup of coffee." "You're in luck," she replied. "Ours is decent sometimes." She poured him a cup and sat it in front of him, then hesitated. He looked up again, eyebrows raised slightly. "No Secret Service?" she asked quietly. "They're outside," he said. "Told them I needed 5 minutes, just 5. She nodded. "You'll get them. What'll you have?" "Apple pie. If it's warm, it is." He didn't speak again until she returned with the pie. Then he said, "Thank you, Miss Ellie," she replied. "Ellie Jameson." He gave a small nod. "Ellie, that's a good name." There was a silence as he took a bite, then another. She was about to turn away when he spoke again, voice low, as though afraid the words might escape the booth and run wild through the country. "Do you ever feel like you're being torn in 2 directions at once, Ellie?" She leaned on the counter across from him, curious. Every day he looked up. "Do you?" "I have a 6-year-old son. His name's Marcus. He wants me to read him bedtime stories, help with his homework, walk him to school. But I also have to pay rent, buy groceries, and work shifts I can barely stay awake through. So yeah, I know." That feeling. Kennedy was quiet again. Then he whispered, almost to himself, "There are decisions I'm being asked to make that no one should have to. Things I'm told I must do for the good of the country. But when I look at those files, when I hear those names, I don't see enemies. I see people with families, just like you." Ellie tilted her head. "You're talking about Cuba, or Vietnam?" He gave a faint smile. "Smart woman, not smart, just paying attention." He took a breath. "They want to strike, covert surgical, they call it. Clean, no such thing, though. It never is, there's always blood. And it's never just the target who pays." Ellie looked at the man in front of her, not the polished leader on television, but a man wrestling demons, right here in her booth. She didn't know policy, or military strategy, but she knew the heart. She'd lived through heartbreak, seen neighbors drafted and lost, and watched hope come and go like the bus schedule outside. So she said, "You have power, but you also have a soul. Don't let the office take that from you." He stared at her, eyes narrowing. "You think I have a choice? You always have a choice. Maybe not about what's easy, but about what's right." The door swung open again with the wind, and a tall figure in a black suit peered in Secret Service. Their time was up. Kennedy stood slowly, leaving bills on the table he didn't need to count. As he gathered his coat, he looked back at Ellie. "Thank you for the pie, and the truth," she smiled. "Come back any time." He paused at the door, then turned back and said, "Your son's lucky. You're teaching him more than any school ever could." She watched him go, the cold air rushing in with him and then vanishing behind the swinging door. The diner returned to its rhythm, and Ellie went back to wiping counters and refilling cups. But something had changed, not just for her, but for the man who had just left. 2 weeks later, the headlines read, "President Holt's planned airstrike cites need for diplomatic solutions." No one at the diner mentioned it. But Ellie clipped the article and tucked it in her apron, heart thudding in her chest. She would never know exactly how much her words had mattered, or how deeply they had rooted in the conscience of a president, but she knew this. Even in a world of suits and strategy, sometimes the most powerful voice is the one that speaks with compassion and truth. Over a slice of apple pie at 2 a.m. Final message. Never underestimate the power of a quiet conversation. You don't need to be famous to make a difference. Sometimes, one moment of honesty from one ordinary person can change the course of history.